We are going to move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is going to present online. And this week we celebrated Africa Day. And Linda also mentioned that she mentioned made a couple of references to what's happening in Africa and West Africa. And our speaker today will be talking about how do we get networks and participation in Africa towards achieving or towards getting circular economy on the continent. So there's a number of activities with regards to circular economy that has been very well documented in what's happening in the rest of Africa. And our speaker today will speak about the role of networks and collaboration in Africa. Our speaker is Tawanda Collins Muzamwezi. He is from the African Sustainability Consultants in Zimbabwe. And we are going to allow him to put up his presentation on Teams. Tawanda. Also, please switch on your camera if you don't mind, and you can connect your presentation to the Teams screen.
Thank you very much, and you can hear me very clearly.
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, for this opportunity, and may I also thank the NCPC South Africa for arranging this event, and of course the government of South Africa and all key stakeholders. I'm glad to join you in this virtual manner. My apologies, I could not be with you physically as I have had to attend to an emergency situation. But all the same, we are talking about the circular economy. So my presentation this morning will talk about towards a circular economy, the role of networks and collaboration in Africa, how networks help us towards achieving a circular economy. And of course, as highlighted by the chairman, I'm the chief sustainability consultant for Toxiconsol Consultancy, also known as the African Sustainability Consultants. And of course, the last time I was in South Africa, I was still with the Business Council for Sustainable Development, Zimbabwe, where I've since retired. Just to let you know that this presentation is part of a PhD research that is going on with the University of Twente in the Netherlands. And I'm also glad to share some of the emerging issues that are coming through. And of course, before I go further, I also want to just acknowledge the director of the NCPC South Africa, Mr. Ndivu Rapulu, for leading the team and also inviting me to be participating in this event. I'm going to just go through an outline of my presentation so that we move forward. I will talk about the concept of the circular economy, what it is about, and why collaboration is important when it comes to the circular economy. It is possible for a company to operate as an individual organization, but also it is beneficial to operate together with other organizations. That's basically an overview of my profile and summary. I'm not going to be going through that for today's meeting, but I'm basically an international consultant with work in about 30 countries across the world, working in the area of resource efficiency, cleaner production, waste management, energy efficiency, on all those concepts, but working with industries and also working with governments across the African continent. So the outline of my presentation, as I earlier on said, that this presentation is part of a research that is actually going on, at a global level, but of course focusing on Africa. Like the chair said, yesterday was Africa Day, and we were celebrating our Africanness. and the renaissance of Africa and us taking Africa forward. But we as Africans, we need to have solutions to our own problems, including circular economy problems. So I'll just give an introduction, and then I'll talk about the global challenges of networks. I'll give a bit of a theoretical framework. Then I'll talk about the methodological approach. I'll also talk about the geographical morphology of networks, and then the challenges of networks and collaboration, and how we can make networks effective. At the end, I will also present some case studies in Africa, case studies in South Africa, case studies in Zimbabwe, case studies in Kenya, and case studies in Uganda, which demonstrate a circular economy. Ladies and gentlemen, as an introduction, environmental sustainability has become one of the major challenges affecting humanity today. We have got issues such as climate change, water pollution, ozone depletion, electronic waste, deforestation, waste, and hazardous chemicals. And according to the United Nations Secretary General, we are now in a place of no return. We are now in a place where we can no longer reverse some of these issues. So a circular economy, it can be a panacea to the global sustainability challenges. A circular economy is seen as a solution to those problems. And a circular economy is different from a linear economy, which is take, make, dispose. In the circular economy, we look at extraction, we design, we produce, we distribute, but also we recycle. We rechannel some resources back into the value chain, just like what the first presenter indicated. So the circular economy is an opportunity to deal with the global environmental challenges. But the question now is, how do individual companies achieve a circular economy on their own? Collaboration, partnerships can be a key solution towards a circular economy. So in this presentation, I really want to encourage you as an organization, as a university, as a mining company, or as an academic institution to collaborate with others if we are going to scale up a circular economy. And this is my proposition. Going forward, you will see that industrial development has been responsible for the majority of the environmental challenges that we face. And if we are going to achieve resource efficiency, we need partnerships. And the concept of a circular economy has proven its potential in developing and transition countries, but the implementation is still quite low across the African continent. Save for countries like South Africa, Tunisia, Morocco, the other countries are still struggling. So we have got what we call sustainable business networks. And these are networks of organizations which are collaborating together for information dissemination, capacity building, and sharing experiences. And these are the organizations that we are talking about in terms of whether they can help us to steer the circular economy forward. And it is also quite well known that research on networks has been lagging behind. And you also see that in Africa, very little evidence exists on the effect of network activities. You've got large networks, but the impact of their network activities has not been widely researched. And this is an area that needs to be looked at. To say, how do we scale up network activities beyond team meetings, beyond workshops, beyond conferences, beyond just coming up with a newsletter? How can sustainable business networks help us? And these sustainable business networks, they are a group of organizations that promote resource efficiency services. The morphology is different. They could be business associations. In South Africa, you've got your National Business Initiative. In Zimbabwe, you've got the Business Council for Sustainable Development Zimbabwe, Confederation of Zimbabwean Industry. There can be regional networks like your African Roundtable on Sustainable Consumption and Production. There can be international networks. So these are different forms of networks. The European Roundtable for Sustainable Consumption and Production, the Asia Pacific. And participation in networks can be voluntary. It can also be regulated. There are certain networks that are engineering driven, which make it mandatory for somebody to be a member. Others are voluntary. But we also need to find out, do voluntary networks perform better than those which are mandatory? That information, we need more empirical studies. We need more empirical research to understand that. So in this slide, what you see is the complicated relationships which are between organizations. One company providing information, one company providing knowledge, another company providing awareness and technical assistance, legal and policy support. So this is how networks collaborate. Sometimes it's not as linear as it appears in that picture, but I'm really to find out companies that are succeeding on their own without network collaboration. Yes, you can do well as an individual company, but you need to understand that when you collaborate with others, they're saying that if you want to go far, you should not go alone. If you want to go far, you should not go alone. So when you look at the sustainability theory, I think quite a well-known traditional theory, and the innovation theory, and also the organizational theory, particularly the institutional isomorphism, because companies, they try their own means to be similar to each other as a result of pressures. These pressures could be coercive pressures from the regulators. The pressures could be mimetic pressures from other companies, because when you see other companies doing a circular economy, companies also are drawn to want to implement a circular economy. The normative isomorphism from standards and norms. So the sustainable business networks and the collaboration then help us to achieve sustainable development. And this is the work that is being done by the NCPC of South Africa through the Cleaner Production Program, through the industrial symbiosis. And the previous speaker mentioned that when we talk of a circular economy, it's not only about waste management. I think there's that myopic thinking. There's that short-sighted thinking that a circular economy is about waste management only, but that is not true. When you look at the methodological approach that we are taking in this type of international research, when you do systematic literature reviews, document reviews, and of course key informant interviews with the network participants, there are quite a number of things that we are finding out. And in this collage of this slide, I show you typical networks that are existing already. The global RECIP net, which some of the organizations which are at this conference are part of, the African Roundtable on Sustainable Consumption, which is the regional network. The RECIP net is a global network. The Greening of Industry network is a global network, but of course, mostly Eurocentric. The Asia Pacific Net Roundtable on Sustainable Consumption and Production, the National Business Initiative, the Business Council for Sustainable Development Zimbabwe. Do these networks make an impact in our organizations? Are there benefits of network participation? These are key questions that we are also asking, because some of the networks do formal evaluations of their work. Some of them do not do formal evaluations of their work. So the encouragement in this conference is that if you are organizing a network, or if you are administering a network, please, can you regularly do network impact evaluations? Because you could just be doing team meetings. You could just be doing activities on the surface without an impact on the members. Are the network activities helping members? Among these, there are also networks that have collapsed. And also this study, it's looking at various countries and why networks fail. Some networks fail because of power struggles. Some networks fail because they don't have money to undertake network activities. Some networks fail because they've got poor governance. Some networks fail because of apathy. So as we collaborate on a circular economy, we need to understand why do we have these networks and how do they help us. The other thing is the cognitions. We look at the cognitions of network participation, and when I look at cognitions, I'm looking at the motivations. What are the motivations of being in a network? Some companies get into networks to improve resource efficiency, whereas some companies go into networks just for public relations, to get the information and get public relations just for the show. Once again, this slide presents the morphology of networks at industrial cluster level, at national level, at regional level, and at international level. But we must not only focus on the geographical aspect of networks. You know, here in Zimbabwe, we've got your Southerton Industrial Cluster, you've got your Stapleford Industrial Cluster, you've got your Workington Industrial Clusters, and these are groups of organizations within a geographical proximity. Okay, but again, you then see networks coming through as a result of thematic focus, because if in the geographical area some organizations close, then you end up without a network. So those networks which collaborate on a thematic basis, they seem to have a higher longevity. As I come to the end of my presentation, I want to present to you some challenges associated with the networks, or which networks are facing currently from the preliminary work that we've already done. Number one, there are corporate cultural differences between companies. So as organizations get into networks, there are corporate cultural differences of network participation. And also there are issues to do with financing of network activities. Some networks, they struggle because they don't have financing, whether they are based on subscriptions or other donations or other financing models. What I like about some of the programs that are happening in South Africa and that are happening in Kenya, that are happening in Egypt, is the self-sustainability of networks, the ability of the network to sustain its own activities. We have had networks, which are dependent on donor funding, where the activities, they are financed by donors, the network is run as a project, and beyond project financing, the network does not work. So that is a key challenge in terms of how we orient our networks. There is also the issue of loss of control of sustainability strategy at corporate level, the different contexts. In some countries, there is poor enforcement of regulation. So if there is no enforcement, the networks, the motivations of some of the members who are driven by laws can also be low. Then, of course, the risk associated with translating network concepts into profitable activities. Yes, there are a lot of things that are coming from the network, but are they profitable to the company? Do they fit into the strategy of the company? As I talk to CEOs, as I talk to business leaders, these are some of the issues that they are saying, that some of the network activities are not relevant. Some of the technologies are not context specific. You get a technology from America, you get a technology from Australia. You want to bring this technology into an African context. How do you tailor make it to the African situation? Yes, you can come up with improved cook stoves. The design you're getting of improved cook stove is from India, and you want to bring this into Gauteng. You want to bring this into Mpumalanga. You want to bring this into the Limpopo. How do we ensure that networks bring relevant technologies? Africa is not a destination for dumping technologies. Africa is not a lab for experiments to be done on the circular economy. So this is where the challenges are also coming. The other issue is poor management and governance. I'm not going to name any specific networks, but in some of the networks that I've seen in Africa, there have been issues of governance. And at certain points, those networks have had to then have committees that are rescuing them from secretariats, from leadership, which really goes to sleep and does not know how to manage networks. And in a number of times, we've been bailed out by South Africa in some of those networks. So the issue of management and governance determines whether a network succeeds. And then the network dependence. We don't want companies to depend on networks for everything.
If you want to do a waste management program, if you want to do an energy efficiency program or a water program, you depend on the network. You can't do anything of your own. You can no longer innovate. I think that is not a good thing. Then as we come to a close, we want to ask ourselves a question: are these networks effective in promoting a circular economy? I'll say yes and no. The context-specific factors in the country, they influence a lot. The corporate culture, the legal and policy regimes, really, if there's no enforcement of regulations, the proliferation of networks is really affected. You also see that there are some companies that get into networks for the wrong reasons, just because their competitor is also now in a network, or just because it's a fashion to be in a network. What are the motivations of companies in network activities? I have presented in this slide the factors affecting effectiveness of networks for a circular economy. Financing is required for the networks to work. Governance is also key. The power dynamics. We are having some networks where there is a fighting for power, fighting for control, fighting for leadership in the network. And we should never bring in politics into sustainability networks. We should not bring politics into round tables. We should not bring politics into industry associations. So some networks are then spending their time in these politics of leadership, politics of governance, West Africa versus East Africa, North Africa versus Southern Africa. Whether it's Asia versus Europe or Europe versus Africa. The power dynamics of networks. We are going to be looking further into that in the next year or two in terms of how the power dynamics affect networks. Administration and organizational capabilities. I was leading a network here in Zimbabwe and leading its own secretariat for 6 years before I retired, and there's a new secretariat. And the way they run the network also determines whether there's interest in membership and whether there's an impact. So we need to see the role of administration and organizational capabilities, the cognitions, the motivations that I spoke about, it, the legal and policy environment, technology access as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say farewell to you in the next 2 to 3 minutes so that I don't eat much of the time. I'm going to present some African countries where there is potential of networking and how circular economy networks are actually proliferating in terms of promoting a circular economy. And I'm very proud of South Africa. Each time I come to Mzansi, when I look at the programs that are being done by the NCPC there. Well done, Mr. Chairman. Well done, Mr. Rapul. Well done, and all the team in the NCPC. The Industrial Symbiosis Program of South Africa and the case studies demonstrate the power of networks in promoting a circular economy. They are proven case studies also supported by the NCPC. So, and some of these activities are happening because of the network of companies that has been created by the NCPC. When you look at Zimbabwe, and I know that the last time when I was there in 2019 at the ICC at a similar conference, we spoke about the industrial energy efficiency. The previous speaker mentioned that the circular economy is not only about waste management. So we are seeing case studies of industrial energy efficiency and energy recovery in Zimbabwean enterprises, including heat recovery, condensate recovery, and achieving a circular economy. And this has been facilitated by participation in the BCSDZ, in the Business Council for Sustainable Development. We also have got the PET Recycling Company, which is a company that is a network of beverage manufacturers, a network of dairy companies who have come together to deal with polyethylene. And they've managed to reduce the amount of waste, PET, from the bottling sector. As we go to Kenya, you will see that in Kenya, there is the Global Compact Network, Kenya. My People Kenya, mainstreaming circular economy into corporate sustainability practice, collaborating on the principles of a global compact. The Kenya Climate Change Working Group, which is also promoting circularity in fighting climate change. Chemical leasing, the previous speaker mentioned chemical leasing, and we are also seeing chemical leasing case studies in Uganda, especially in the beverages companies of Uganda, using chemical leasing as a viable business model, promoting safe chemicals management and enabling a circular economy, again, through the networking activities facilitated by the Uganda NCPC. There's a greater acceptance of a circular economy. There's a greater acceptance of chemical leasing. This is my last slide. And to just sum up the experiences and the key lessons. Number one, networks are very critical in facilitating a circular economy. And the cognitions and motivations influence success factors. Let's have the right cognitions as we get into networks. The external factors can also provide success. This could be the policies, the laws of the country. They influence whether or not a network will be successful. To finance network activities is important for sustainability. And also, networks that are based on projects only, they may face challenges after the project has come to an end, whether you are being supported by an international organization, whether you are being supported financially to run network activities. The support you get should just be a leverage for you to do your network activities. We want to see networks becoming sustainable. We had networks like the Global RecipeNet, running across the world and promoting resource efficient and cleaner production. And what we need to see is also, members in such networks, for example, just honoring their subscriptions to ensure that the network thrives. A network governance model is required to provide effective management of networks, and also networks should engage stakeholders in determining priorities. Mr. Chairman, I think this is the end of my presentation. I want to thank you so much for giving me this chance, and all of you for following my presentation. In a nutshell, what I believe is Africa is in need of a circular economy, but we cannot achieve a circular economy as individual companies. We need to collaborate, we need to partner, we need to work together. There is no room for a silo mentality. There's no room for isolation. There's no room for not working with others. And I believe that together we can build a circular economy in Africa. Thank you so much.